Good morning, friends. It's Heather at Bush Poppy Farm. I hope you are doing well. Today, we're going to spend the video talking about putting together hand-tied bouquets. And these are the kind that I put out for my CSA. So I harvest from my perennials at home, from the annuals at the farm, and create bouquets for my CSA members. If you're not aware of what a CSA is, it stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And basically people buy a share into the farm for part of the season. Now, some people do the whole season. It's widely varied about how people set up their CSAs. There are vegetable garden CSAs. There are CSAs that have eggs or meat or fish. So it's very broad. But the nice thing is for the farmers, we get the money up front and then we can space it out over the course of the year. So, it helps us buy supplies, all that kind of stuff. And it's guaranteed sales. So it's not like when you go to a farmer's market and you might make 50 bouquets and you maybe sell 10 of them. And the rest of that is lost because they will fade and they won't be good for selling any other time after that. So CSAs are really great for farms. So if you can join one, I highly recommend it. Almost every CSA is organic, use regenerative practices, things like that. So you can read all about what people offer on their websites. For me, I have 4 different CSA sessions. The first one is called the First Rites of Spring. It starts like late February, early March, depending on when Mother Nature decides it's time to start waking up the flowers. And that's a 4-week session. It's once a week for 4 weeks. And then I have a spring session that is 6 weeks long, a summer session that is 8 weeks long, and a fall session that is 6 weeks long. And you can either buy a weekly share or a bi-monthly share. So if you're we're finishing up the spring session right now, there were people who were 6 bouquets, they had 1 a week, and then there were people who only got 3 bouquets, 1 every other week. So that's what I do. Lots of people, like I said, do it other ways. I have add-ons as well. You can get an add-on of eggs every week if you like, from my chickens. I have honey that you can add on as well. So there's some other options in there. But today's video is really all about how you create a hand-tied bouquet. Now, I'm working with roses today, and even though probably you saw in the video, I used the back of my pruners to just kind of scrape off all the as many tiny thorns as I could. There's still some on there. So I am going to be using gloves. I normally don't use gloves when I'm doing this, but I just don't feel like getting stuck today. So supplies. So you can hand tie bouquets anyway. You can use, I got this twine here that I like to use to tie the paper. You don't have to wrap it in paper. Some people use plastic sleeves. I'm trying to get away from plastic. So I use paper sleeves. And mine have a label on them because of the business. But obviously you don't have to do that. You could write on them, you could draw, you could do artwork, whatever. Anyway, paper sleeves, I get these from a company, I used to get them from Aroo, A-R-O-O. Now I get them from Johnny's because that way I can get all the stuff that I need in one shipment. Flower food, all that stuff. They come in multiple different sizes. The thing I like about them is, because I know a lot of people use craft paper, which is the same thing, it's just a flat sheet. I like these because they're already made. And I just slide the bouquet in there, tie it up at the bottom, and it's all set. Because I'm a little lazier. But the craft paper is really nice too, and a lot of people use those. So I've got my sleeves. Everybody gets a flower food sachet. This stuff is really important. It actually does work. Number one, it's mostly sugar. It feeds the flowers, the stems, and it also keeps the stem open. So it doesn't let them seal up as quickly. So it keeps the water flowing. And some of them have a little bit of additive to keep the water from getting really gunky. But the key to that is no leaves below the water line. So you're definitely going to want to strip your flowers. Okay, so I've got my sleeves, my flower food, rubber bands, another important thing. And then I use twine to wrap it at the end. And of course, you need pruners because we're going to cut off the ends of the stems and make everything even. The ingredients we have that we're working with today, it's big mangled in here. I've got pittosporum back here as our greenery. And then we've got these Joseph's Coat roses. It's nice. They have really nice long stems. All the buds have at least one that's about to open and then multiple others that will continue to open. We've got a little bit of lavender, which I don't think I'm going to use, and I'm only going to use that in one bouquet. And then we've got this Centranthus. Generally in a hand-tied bouquet, I use a formula. This is very similar for vase bouquets as well. We call them a recipe. I like to use odds. So I'll generally use 3 focal flowers and usually 5 secondary flowers. And then 3 to 5, sometimes 7, depending on what it is, filler flowers. And generally in my, so everybody kind of defines them a little bit differently, but focal flowers in this case like is the rose, or it could be peonies or big zinnias or dahlias. Those are the wow factor flowers, right? And you don't use a lot of those because you do want them to be the focus. So I generally go with 3. If it's a bigger arrangement, I'll do 5, bigger bouquet. And then the secondary flowers are things that kind of shine behind the focal flowers. So that could be anything, some of these can go either focal or either secondary or filler, but it could be the smaller zinnias, like the little Oklahoma series. It could be status or stock, or I've got some Centranthus here in my head is the secondary flower. Something that is still a pop, but it's secondary to the focal flowers. And then the filler, I like to think of as like the airy substance. So that could be mages, Queen Anne's lace, or even snapdragons. They can be secondary flowers or they could be filler flowers because they're like the spike flowers, right? Veronica is another option. In this case, we are going to be using Hot Lips salvia. Things that are like wispy, airy, fill out the space, baby's breath, that kind of idea. And then of course we have a greenery, and that's the majority of your bouquet is going to be the greenery because you want that to really fill everything out. Plenty of people love, and I love them too, bouquets that are solid focal flowers, like those gorgeous bouquets that are like rounded and it's just all the same flower. That's cool too. But in general, with a market bouquet, which is what this is, a hand-tied bouquet, we want a mix. Market bouquets also tend to be more vibrant in color. I don't always stick to that rule. Basically for me, it's whatever I have in the field to harvest. But a lot of times market bouquets are more vibrant and cheery and happy. These are like the ones you pick up at Trader Joe's or, your grocery store. So, all right, we're gonna get started. I'm gonna put my gloves on. I'm gonna choose 3 roses, and I think I have enough for 5 Centranthus, a couple airy pieces, and then the pittosporum, and I'll show you how we put all that together. After all of that I just told you, we're gonna flip the script. I realized that I cut a lot of roses because I had a lot of roses. So we're gonna have 5 in these bouquets. Part of the reason is that these aren't fully open yet, and it probably will look a little empty at first if there's only 3 stems. So we've got 5 stems for each bouquet. And we're gonna have 3 stems of Centranthus, 2 of the Hot Lips salvia, which are similar color with the roses. So one of the things you wanna make sure of is that you don't have any leaves that are gonna go below the water line. So you see I've stripped back everything here. We just have stem, and I have used the back of my pruners to rub along the stems like this to kind of knock down some of those fine thorns. The other reason to get rid of the leaves, as many leaves as possible, is that the back of rose leaves usually have thorns, and so that can be uncomfortable for a customer. Getting the greenery ready. Now, this is 1 stem of pittosporum. You can see it's really kind of wild. This actually is going to be multiple stems in the bouquet itself. So I don't want this extra on the bottom here because it's going to be below the water line. And this is kind of too short to use in the bouquet itself. So I'm going to set that off to the side. But the rest of this, I can set this up as 2 separate stems. So I can make a cut right here and bring this down this way, and now I've got 2 stems. But I want to get rid of all the stuff on the bottom here. So like I said, you don't want anything below the water line. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to start with one of the lighter, like less dense pieces of foliage. And then we're going to start building, and we're going to build, I like to build on a diagonal in a circle. So I've got my stem of greenery here. I'm going to take one of the roses. I'm going to lay it in an X on top of the stem here. And don't worry about this being uneven. We'll even that up at the end. What you want to focus on is what's up here, because you want everything to kind of be at the same level at the top. Now, if I was making these with tulips, I would actually put the tulip in down here, because tulips grow in the vase, and so they will actually get taller, and then you don't want them to be too tall above the rest of the arrangement. But roses do not continue to grow. I mean, they'll open, but they won't grow in the stem. So I'm making an X like this, and then I'm getting my next piece, and I'm making another X. So I'm just kind of twisting this in my hand, laying down every time something new. Do another rose. And this can all be pulled around as we go. There's another filler flower, another rose. And now I'm going to pop in some of my salvia. And sometimes with the filler flowers, the airy pieces, I do want them to stick up a little bit above the rest of the arrangement. Okay, pop this one in here, here. So basically we're twisting as we go. I'm now going to put in another piece of greenery and add my last flower. You can sort of look around and see if you have holes anywhere. But this one, since I've got this airy piece here, then I want to turn this and put this one on this side. Usually don't like to work in evens, but that's how it worked out today. All right, then another piece of foliage. And I think I'm going to get one more piece of foliage. Okay, so I'm going to put it on this end. All right. Woo, your hands get tired holding. So, doesn't look very full right now, but think about when all those roses open. So you just take a look at it. It looks, you know, pretty even, distributed. Then what we do is we grasp it like this, and then we want to even up all of these stems. So I'm going to take my clippers and I'm just going to cut right there. This is the shortest stem. I'm going to cut just like that. Now everything is the same height. Take my glove off for this. Taking a rubber band, this is the best way to rubber band your stuff. You go over 1 or 2 of the stems, the strongest ones, okay, not the whole thing. Then you just wrap around like that and go back over another stem. So what's nice about that is it's super easy to get off for the customer, and it's not back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, wrapping and twisting. It's super fast. But there's going to be one more rubber band. I'm going to take my flower packet. This is how I do it. I put it at the bottom here, and then I'm just going to wrap it on with a rubber band. Now we're going to slip inside of our sleeve. I have a length of green twine here. I've got it in my sleeve. I'm going to pull the sleeve up so it cradles all the flowers and keeps them from breaking off. That's really kind of what we use this for. I mean, it looks nice too, but it keeps if they get bumped and stuff, it's much better to have them enclosed like this, because then you don't break off stems or buds. Just gonna grasp it here and then tie a bow. And there you have it. That's how I do hand tied bouquets. Looks pretty from the top. And as these open, it will be very full. So I just have 2 more to do. This is the end of my CSA for spring, and then we have a number of weeks before the summer session starts in May, which is great because that gives time for stuff to grow more at the farm. And it'll give me a break too, because I have a lot of other things to do in the next couple of weeks before that CSA picks up. So I'm going to go ahead and make those next 2 bouquets, and then we'll be done. Well, that's all there is to it, guys. I hope that that was fun and interesting, and I hope you give it a try. Pick up some flowers at the grocery store, or go harvest some from your own garden and give it a try. It's really fun, and you can put those in a vase. You can make the stem shorter if you want to and just pop them in a vase. Sometimes I like to make vase arrangements in my hand like that and then put them in a vase, because then they're all mixed up together. So give it a try, have fun with it, and have fun playing with flowers. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope you have a wonderful time in your garden, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.